Hi, and thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you to Greenbook for inviting us to speak at the Insights Tech Showcase on this awesome topic of brand health. Today, myself and Ron will be your tour guides. And on the left, you can see Ron Roofnott, who heads up our research solutions at Toluna, with many years of experience in the industry at the biggest agencies. And on your right, my name is Cara Edwards, and I'm a VP of Digital Solutions across the Americas. Today, Ron and I are going to talk with you about why maintaining a healthy brand is so important. We identify changes in traditional brand health measurements that have been accelerated in the years since the pandemic, and why those changes should drive insight professionals to challenge the way that they are measuring their brand's health. And finally, how agile research platforms and automated solutions can make measuring brand health easier and more efficient than ever before. The key theme of the past 2 years has really been disruption. COVID drove the greatest level of world and marketplace disruption that any of us here today can likely remember. We saw consumers driven by availability and new needs, trading up or trading down from their usual brands, becoming less price sensitive, but also engaging with new or lapsed categories. And in today's post-COVID world, if we can call it post-COVID now, inflation, shrinkflation, and the cost of living has continued to change the way that consumers interact with different brands. I personally normally buy the same brand and same make of coffee creamer, but I have actually been buying different brands recently, depending on what coupon or what's been on sale. So I'm sure a lot of others are now also shopping that way. But with all of this disruption, brands need to take notice as well as action and understand that the drivers of brand loyalty and what consumers expect from brands have also been impacted. Brand loyalty is no longer a rite of passage, as consumers expect more from brands, extending beyond their product or service category itself, but into the broader lives of consumers too. Successful brands know how important it is to remain relevant, especially during disruptive times like these where inflation is the key word on everyone's minds. And remaining relevant means ensuring that your brand values align with your consumer target and their specific needs. So throughout the past 2 years, Toluna constructed a consumer barometer, which ultimately really measured the attitudes, perceptions, and behaviors of consumers over the past 24 months or so. And actually, we just launched Wave 20 in the past week. So if you would like a free copy of that report, please drop me an email at the end of this session. But let's dive into some of the key takeaways from the barometer report. And as you can see illustrated here, is that you can strengthen your brand's relationship with your target by standing for something that aligns with the values of your consumers. 1 in 4 consumers have told us that they specifically engage with brands that hold similar values to theirs. And about 4 in 10 have stopped supporting the brand, not because of dissatisfaction with the product or service experience, but because the brand didn't align with their personal values. Finally, almost 60% are more likely to engage with your brand if they perceive that your brand's values are in alignment with their own. And again, as I mentioned earlier, this goes beyond the brand's product or service category itself, but into the broader lives of consumers. Thinking about what consumers value, we know from research that they want and expect brands to be more environmentally and socially conscious and behave in a compassionate and responsible way. I've definitely changed my loyalties and purchase behavior when a product is non-recyclable or features a lot of unnecessary packaging. So you might have noticed there's a huge movement at the minute towards refillable products or products that feature fewer harmful products such as toxic ingredients or microplastics, for example. So with all of this happening and having to take all of this into account, how do you measure a healthy brand? Well, looking at what makes a brand important or healthy, there are three main factors in traditional methods of brand health tracking of what makes a healthy brand and a brand that will stand the test of time. Firstly, do people consider your brand? Is your brand part of the consideration set when making a purchase, when making a usage selection, or trying or visiting a specific place or brand? Are consumers willing to make a recommendation about your brand? Is it something that they are willing to discuss and talk to others about your brand? And finally, trust. Do consumers have faith and believe in your brand? Each of these items and metrics are really important when maintaining a healthy brand. But as we've discussed, brand health has been evolving for a really long time, and those changes were truly accelerated over the past 2 years. So enough looking at the past and traditional metrics. Let me pass it over to Ron, who's going to look at a more future-facing and future-proofed way of measuring brand health.
Thanks, Cara. Now, there isn't any argument on the importance of maintaining healthy brands, but many companies are considering or already have stopped their brand tracking programs. And this is because they don't feel that these programs are delivering sufficient return on investment, ROI, just at the time when this consumer insight is really needed most. And this, in large part, is because brand tracking itself just hasn't kept pace. Because the reality of today is that co-creation is the norm. Customers are more in control and continue to have higher demands and expectations of brands. And there's been major changes in digital and social interaction and the way that consumers just engage with brands. And in recent years, everyone's been grappling with this idea, this world of big data and AI, and driving more personal relationships, personalized relationships with consumers. Then you have technology disruption, which has also led to the blurring of boundaries and highly competitive markets, which are more fragmented with a plethora of new entrants and challenger brands trying to engage quite differently with consumers. So now when you take into consideration all of this, it all impacts how brands are perceived, how they perform, and really how they need to be measured. Now, when we think about traditional brand models, they're based on measuring current or past success, whether or not the brand has momentum moving forward. Standard traditional measures of awareness, familiarity, consideration, and usage, they assume a linear framework, which used to work perfectly in an age where messages were pushed through mass media, communication was a one-way street, brands set the agenda, and the target audience really had little opportunity to influence the relationship. But again, the reality is that brand and consumer conversations of today have really changed. Now, I'm not suggesting in any way that these traditional measures should be thrown away. But if we're going to be successfully measuring brands in today's environment, a more holistic set of measures is required. And a model that enables brands to grow with consumers and considers the whole relationship that I've been talking about and appreciates the complexities of the way brands and consumers now engage and how rational and emotional consumer experiences deepen brand knowledge and influence preference and purchase. And also a model that takes into account future relevance and vitality, not just knowledge and equity measures. And a model that utilizes online platforms and automated solutions, which enable even faster and more cost-efficient insights. And for those who want it, self-service modeling. So from our point of view, brands need to closely monitor their future relevance. They need to develop innovations that fit future needs, and they really need to show how integral they are to consumers' lives. Because the reality is, even if someone thinks a brand is great, if it isn't relevant for them and for their needs, they're simply not going to buy it. Really successful brands also have consumers who are really excited about them and the products and services that they offer, where consumers seek out and search for information about the brand and encourage brands to stay in contact with them. And where, there's a certain level of FOMO, that is, they're worried about missing out on the latest products and services, or they want to be one of the first to try or own a new product, or take advantage of services and offers like new phones or games. Think about launches in the pre-social distancing past that drove consumers to line up around the block, like the launch of the latest iPhone. But even in CPG categories where folks aren't likely to be lining up around the block, excitement drives advocacy and word of mouth. And lastly, a brand needs to build a sense of community, creating an environment where consumers suggest how a brand can improve and where brands work with consumers to find solutions, where consumers have empathy for the people behind the brand and with other users of the brand itself, creating this sense of belonging. So now, when we look at our model and the components that are part of it, we dimensionalize that in what we call our brand sustainability matrix. And it examines brands on three key dimensions. So, on the vertical axis that we're looking at here, we look at traditional metrics that assess the current brand performance. And on the horizontal, we're looking at how brands are perceived on future relevance. And then our third dimension is vitality. So the size of the bubbles indicate the vitality of the brand. And again, that's the excitement and community that they're generating, without which any brand would just not be sustainable. So as we look at those three dimensions, each brand is going to fall into one of these sustainability quadrants. Looking at compelling brands, those are in the upper right, they tend to be mass market brands with high future relevance. And these are brands that generally perform well in terms of vitality, with bubbles that are larger than other brands that may be in the strong quadrant to the top left. And those brands in the strong quadrant, while they have high present equity and penetration, they're perceived as less relevant to consumers, or at least consumers don't see that they're going to evolve with consumer needs and remain relevant for the future. So these are brands that tend to have medium or low vitality and really need to be thinking about how to better drive sustainability. In the bottom right, challenging brands, they tend to have good equity, but their penetration is still low. These are brands that possess very high vitality and are future proofed. These are the ones to look in the rearview mirror for those who are in the compelling quadrant. They should be watching for those because these are brands that are poised for growth. And then finally, the building quadrant or the rebuilding quadrant, these are brands that have low equity and penetration, as well as low future relevance. And their vitality score also tends to be small. So now here's a fun example from the spirits category here in the US. For the purposes of today, we're showing a nationally representative broad category level view of legal drinking age adults 22 plus. Regardless of their spirits engagement or their use of particular subcategories such as bourbon or gin, these are strictly legal drinking age adults, so a broad view. Now, when we think about a study that you might conduct leveraging our model, brand managers will likely want to customize the competitive set as well as the target audience of interest to make it most relevant to your business questions. But competitive set is incredibly important because a brand's position on this map is relative to all the other brands included. So here in the US that you can see Jack Daniels has the strongest level of brand knowledge and equity for today. It's the one with the highest elevation. But if we look at the right of the chart, we see that Patron, from the consumer's perspective, has the strongest level of sustainability with high future relevance and one of the largest levels of vitality indicated by the size of the bubble. And right there with it, you can see Bombay Sapphire, Grey Goose, and Fireball. These are brands that are all poised for sustainable growth with strong relevance and vitality. So now, looking at all three dimensions simultaneously, we provide an overall brand health score. And you can see where Jack Daniels, which was in the upper left, had the greatest level of elevation because it had the strongest performance of today. But when we take into consideration future relevance and vitality, you can see that the Patrons, the Bombay Sapphires, the Fireballs of the world, those are actually overall in a stronger position than Jack Daniels. So again, to survive today, brands need to be more than just a simply strong brand. They need to be healthy, sustainable brands, which means not looking backward to ensure previous success, but being a brand that builds and measures its relevance and vitality for the future. And the most amazing thing is that you can use our Toluna Start platform to easily measure the health of your brand and your competitors on these dimensions. So now Cara is going to show you at a high level just how easy it is. Cara?
Hi, thank you so much, Ron. So we all know that the metrics that Ron went through are key when measuring the brand health, but how can we at Toluna actually help you execute it quickly and efficiently, but without compromising quality or the research methodologies? Well, sticking with the alcohol and spirits theme that Ron just spoke you through, which is a very fun example, let's take a look at how this works when you need to be more agile with brand health. There's a lot of brand health ways of running brand health across the industry. And one way that we execute it is using our Toluna Start environment. So let me introduce our research technology solution called Toluna Start. And this is the place where integrated panel, a powerful scripting engine, and real-time dashboards and insights come together in one ecosystem. And that really drives incredible efficiencies and incredibly powerful time to insights for any research professionals when it comes to brand health metrics and methodologies. So when it comes to getting started with your brand health, we have a series of automated templates that are including a wide variety of different methodologies, such as concept testing or copy testing, which you can see right now. But everything that Ron has just showed you in terms of all the different metrics and looking at the future vitality and how equitable your brand is, all of that is available in our brand health template. So that means you can easily execute a brand health project in an efficient way, all while getting the best and trusted methodology, which allows you to be incredibly efficient with your time. So because it is an automated solution, it means that everything is already set up for you. The framework of the questionnaire design has already been set up. We do allow you to make lots of edits and add your own custom questions. So we're giving you that full fat research methodology, but with the flexibility to customize certain questions as you need to. And that's something that's really powerful about these automated solutions. It's all about getting time to insights reduced and to be more efficient. So setting up the project when using our templates, it is built to be DIY, so you can do everything yourself. And the setup is a wizard style of setup. So it really guides you through the questions. And also it does allow you to add your own questions, like I mentioned. So you can add custom questions, even custom KPIs, key performance indicators, which really enable you to collect even more information on your brand health in one place, which ultimately saves time by not having to launch several surveys and work with lots of partners for one really simple objective. And then once the survey has been built and you've decided which audience you want to speak to based on their demographic or attitudinal quotas, you have that ability to target very specific audiences using this framework. One of the things that really differentiates Toluna Start is that we do have our panel directly integrated into the solution. So that means not only can you reach an audience from all of the markets that we have available, we can also target those people very specifically using things such as demographic or attitudinal questions. So we really start to not only look at a broad array of different audiences, but we can look at different segments as well. So as soon as you've launched your project, you get to see the data coming in real time. And that's one of the really powerful things about everything in one ecosystem and integration. And it is a huge benefit that you can access everything in one platform. It delivers incredible time efficiencies for you as insights experts. And this dashboard that you can see, this is how we deliver the insights. This is one way that we deliver the insights, I should say. It allows you to look at lots of different segments of your audience. We can actually filter on different audience types and different demographic types, for example. But it also shows you really easily how your brand is performing on each of the metrics that Ron discussed against competitors. So this dashboard is a really approachable way of getting value out of your data. We also delivered the metrics and the data in a variety of other ways, including things such as a PowerPoint export or an Excel export. And we even dive into the data in greater detail. So if there are metrics that you would like to dive into that you can't see on this dashboard, we give you that access as well. So it really does enable you to be 100% DIY with your data. But we also have Ron and his fabulous team that are able to help with any sort of questions or insights that might need clarification. We do have that full support model as well, as and when you need us. So we can be really flexible with your brand health needs and your deliverable support. But you can look at this data on either an individual basis, or you can export the data into a PowerPoint. And that means that we give you greater flexibility to create your brand health story, however your stakeholders really need that information ultimately. So I think that's all we've got time for today. But if you liked what you have seen and you want to go into a little bit more detail, I'd love to give you an in-depth demo of Toluna Start and how we can build a brand health tracking template for you. So please drop Ron and myself an email on the details shown on the screen. And thanks so much for attending. I'm looking forward to seeing you at the next session.
Thank you, everybody.